Good afternoon and welcome to MedTech Crossroads. We are so glad you are here today with us for a special edition of MedTech Crossroads in partnership with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. It's our second installment of Women Who Innovate. We've got a wonderful panel today. Lots of wonderful innovators who are all involved in this process of tech transfer and tech commercialization. So we're going to be talking with them in just a minute. Before that, just a few announcements. Save the date, Michigan Medical Device Summit coming up Tuesday, September 20th, this year in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I hate to say it, but September is getting closer. I think we had the longest day of the year and now it's getting shorter. I always hate that about how summer works, but something to look forward to in September. We're looking forward to MishBio's Michigan Medical Device Summit. Last week, we started a series on de-risking medical device development. July 1st, next week, we'll be talking more about that, talking about how the design control process is a key vehicle for de-risking medical device development. So join us for that next week. And that brings us to the main event today, continuing the Women Who Innovate series with our second installment. In just a minute, I'm going to be joined by DiSante, Adrienne Minerick, Lindsay, Kless, and Kristina Emery. We'll introduce them in just a moment. But first of all, I want to welcome back our friend Denise Graves from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, who's really the one who put the brainchild for this series together and brought our guests to the table. Denise, are you there?
Good afternoon, Gene. I'm here. Thanks for having me back.
That's wonderful. Denise, thank you so much for putting this together and for joining us. I got to say, I got to call you out here on your vacation. You are joining us on your vacation to introduce this with me and to join us. So thank you for your support and for making this happen.
It's my pleasure, Gene. I'm really excited about this series of Women Who Innovate, and I certainly appreciate your partnership as being a host for this great series.
So tell us who we're going to be talking to today in terms of what we took a focus. Last time it was about early stage research. Tell us about our focus today.
Sure. So when putting this webinar series together, I thought about the life cycle of getting a technology out into the market. So as you mentioned, last month we heard from some great researchers who are working on research and getting it out into the commercial market, and they shared with us some of their ways that they do that and their motivations in which they chose to go that route. So next up is today's conversation in the life cycle of getting a technology to market, and that's working with the tech transfer professionals at the institutions. So as you mentioned, we have Anne with MSU, Adrienne with Michigan Tech, Kristina with Spectrum Health Innovations, and Lindsay with Wayne State. And they're going to give us a peek inside of taking the technology from a researcher or from an innovator and what happens next. How do we protect that, and how do we get that out into the market? And then we'll follow up in July and August with the mentors and residents and how they play a role in getting technologies out to market. And then we'll have a conversation with a couple of CEOs of MedTech startups and their motivations in driving the technology out further into the market and customer validation.
Well, this is wonderful. We really appreciate your leadership in putting it together, Denise, and we're looking forward to today's discussion, so I hope you'll stay on as long as you're able and join me as we welcome our guests. So if we can bring everyone's video up, today I'm joined by DiSante, who is the Executive Director of MSU Technologies at the Michigan State University Innovation Center. Lindsay Kless is the Executive Director of the Office of Business Innovation and Technology Commercialization at Wayne State University. Adrienne Minerick is president of the American Society for Engineering Education and a professor of biomedical engineering at Michigan Tech University. Kristina Emery is a senior project specialist, and advisor at Spectrum Health Innovations, which is a part of Spectrum Health Ventures. Welcome all.
Thank you.
Well, let's start.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you all for being here. Sorry, I didn't toss that to any one person in particular, so everyone was like, wait, where does this go? Let's start with Anne, though. I want to ask each of you to introduce yourselves in a little bit more detail and tell us about what you do what your role involves, and maybe one or two things that are really important to you in the role that you currently play. So, Ann, let's start with you.
Great, thank you. So, hi, everybody. I'm Ann DiSante. As mentioned, I am the Executive Director at MSU Technologies in the MSU Innovation Center. So, I think you need to think about our office and one of the three pillars of the Innovation Center: corporate engagement, one pillar; startup entrepreneurship, another pillar; and then my office, which is a very traditional, I say traditional now because the role of the tech transfer office has certainly evolved over the years that I've been a member of that profession. So my office looks and reviews invention disclosures from faculty, assesses both the protectability and the commercial opportunities related to that technology, and then works to identify the best path forward to allow the benefits of that technology to reach the public. We look at pretty much any technology that comes, we look at any technology that comes into our office. So you can look at the broad range of research that happens at Michigan State and know that we will, we say, manage those technologies. So what is important to me? Giving a technology a chance. That's it. Letting get the tires kicked. So, and then feeding back to the inventors our assessment on that technology. So that's a overview of what I do and what my team at MSUT is really focused at doing.
I love that description you just gave of giving every technology a chance. I want to say that 20 years ago, I saw a lot of picking winners and losers, and I just love how you phrased that, which gives a fertile ground for the right things to bubble up to the top. Thank you for being here, Ann. Let's go to, we'll mix it up here. We'll go to Adrienne next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Adrienne Minerick. I'm at Michigan Tech, and one of the key things in my role as a faculty member and researcher in chemical engineering and biomedical engineering is that my own research took to commercialization, went through the whole process of NSF I-Corps, NIH I-Corps, NSF STTR phase 1, phase 2. We had external investors, et cetera. So I have that lived experience of having gone through the whole process. As we were wrapping up part of that, I was asked to then help the next generation of researchers as they were moving their technologies to commercialization. So my role is a touch different than Ann's. I serve as a faculty lead on our I-Corps site, which is part of now the Great Lakes Regional Hub. And I also am involved in our relationship with the Keene Foundation, and that relationship extends both Michigan Tech as well as the American Society for Engineering Education. So we're facilitating this both locally as well as on a national scale in terms of educating and enabling people to learn how their research can connect with a customer and help transform the medical technology industry. So I'm happy to talk about any of those hats as we go forward in questions. Thanks.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, I think I love, and Ann, you made a comment earlier, and Adrienne, you were saying you're trying to teach people how this is going to connect. And I love over the last number of years seeing, especially how folks in roles like all of you are in have upped that game, right? It's not just about here I'm holding something for somebody maybe to pick up. It's about how do we educate people all the way through this process, which I just think is so cool. Lindsay, it's good to see you again, and I am love for you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Gene, and my apologies if I end up just on audio today, but it's so wonderful to be with all of you and see you now. I am serving now as the Executive Director for the Office of Business Innovation and Technology Commercialization at Wayne State University. This is a thrilling new role and a new alignment for the university under our Office of the Provost at Wayne State. And we're really looking to grow what has been kind of a legacy of robust innovation and research and development at Wayne State. I think of a lot of the work that we're doing as really trying to contribute to translation and have a real world impact with technologies. As Jean knows, 95% of my background has been closely tied to MedTech, med device, pharma and healthcare. And so I'm always thinking about the human impact and the health impact to the technology that we help to develop, foster, review, ideate on, and bring to market. And so really having that meaningful human impact and translation is important. But what's really been fun in this role of wearing the hat I am at Wayne State is being asked to represent things like sustainability broadly with the SBN Detroit Consortium and the Herb Foundation. We're doing some interesting work with them. In the arena, we're looking at some different things. So that's always kind of been, those have always been interest areas of mine. What's fun now is thinking about how we can have human and real world impact with those technologies and innovations as well.
That's wonderful. It's always those human interactions that really drive and keep a person going, yep, I want this to be realized. It's an important part. Thank you for being here, Lindsay. And lastly, but not leastly, Kristina Emery, Senior Project Specialist at Spectrum Health Innovations. Tell us a little bit about your role. And I think you just you said beforehand a little change in the role.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. This is going to be a really fun discussion. I'm looking forward to getting to know each and every one of us here. So Kristina Emery, I'm actually a nurse by background. So I've had a 27-year career with Spectrum Health. 20 of those years I spent actually in more of my nursing, wearing my nursing hat. But my current role with our innovations and now ventures, and really that came about, kind of pandemic, right? But I support our, what I'll call inside out innovation. So our tech transfer, right? So any of these fabulous ideas that are coming from any of our internal employees, whether they're surgeons, physicians, nurses, therapists, they're coming to us with some extraordinary ideas. So I help kind of bring those to life, really, and appreciate, it's always a great idea until somebody tells me that it's not anymore, right? So it's one of those where you're fighting for it, right? Because you always want to have those wins. And so, so I support, that getting it to proof of concept, potentially the intellectual property, filing. And then, we're not looking to take that, and build it as, all the way. We're looking to really find a partner. And actually we work typically through licensing agreements to exit those opportunities, those ideas. And then I also wear a hat where we are very outside in innovation. And so we allow innovators such as new startups, companies that are looking to either further develop, maybe reimagine their products, and or implement, new business or care models, things like that. And so I also wear that hat, and having that clinical lens has actually really helped me in this role, especially in healthcare, because I've been with the system for a long time, and it's been able to allow me to navigate things very quickly and smoothly. But then it, just gives me that clinical lens as, we're diving into the problems that truly need to be solved. So that's very much one of my focuses. So pleasure to be here.
That's really fun. It's so satisfying to see, and thank you for your work as a nurse, because it's so satisfying when you're actually a practitioner to get to then work on those other aspects. I think that's just so cool that you're in that position. Well, thank you each. I want to talk for a minute about the path to where you are now. One of our reasons for focusing on women who innovate, this whole series, is to simply bring to light and to show each of your careers, successful careers, because it becomes a role model. It becomes a way to say, this is doable, this has been achieved. But what that path looks like to get to the point that you're at, I'm sure for each of you it's a different path with different highs and different lows. I'd like each of you to take just a couple minutes and tell us about the highlights and even the lowlights, if you want to, of the path that you've taken to get to where you are today, with an eye towards if a young woman were saying, I'd love to be in I'd love to be in Anne's shoes someday. Give us a sense of the path that you've followed to get there. Let's start though with, we're going to mix it up again because I hate going round robin. We're going to start with Lindsay.
Thanks, Gene. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine.
Wonderful. I think this is actually maybe a better connection. So it's been an interesting path, and I hope my biggest hope at this point in my career is that it continues to be an interesting and pleasant ride. I think, one of the high points that for me is always that my network and the people, particularly the people of Southeast Michigan, have been very supportive of my career and my growth. And I think getting to know people, both on a professional as well as somewhat of a personal level, has really made a difference in being able to relate to them and to mutually achieve some meaningful things throughout my career to date. I think, when I think about a low point, I think about being a consultant with PricewaterhouseCoopers and working in the basement of a building for 4 months straight, where there was no light coming in. There was no windows. I was doing some growth and expansion planning for a hospital and their research institute, and was just locked in this space and this time with a cadre of senior partners that had a female partner at the firm in quite a while, and we're just viewing diversity from a very different lens, I think, than maybe where we're hopefully headed. And that was financial services sector was very different, and I learned a lot there, particularly, given the topic here is women who innovate. I learned a lot about the way that women had to persevere and innovate in that sector. I think the work that I did in biosciences, when I was working at the lab in Pfizer, was quite different. There were a lot more women. Our senior research director herself, Cheryl, she was a woman, and all very, very admirable in both organizations. But I think that the struggles that they had to face were quite different. And so I've learned a lot from that and learned to respect the steps that were taken to learn and get the experience that I've been able to obtain.
That's awesome. And hopefully a few more offices with outside light in the process too. That's great.
Yeah, that's been a goal to find sunlight. Right.
It's important. It's important. Let's go to Adrienne next. Adrienne, your path.
Wow. So it's kind of challenging to talk about this because I have to go back a little bit to being a student. I started out in chemical engineering and then found that I really enjoyed discovering new things. And so this is a little different than what you see in a traditional classroom, because a traditional classroom, what's happening is the transfer of existing knowledge. And that's very valuable and parts of it are very exciting. But being able to go into the lab and try things out for the first time and learn directly and discover, that was what was really fun. And so I made the decision to go to grad school. And Lindsay, you'll like this. I went to grad school at the University of Notre Dame, and the labs were actually built down underground below a quad. And we call them the dungeons because when it rained, sometimes there were leaks that came down into the lab. Yeah. So, of course, no windows. You get the whole idea. But when I finished up my master's and PhD at the University of Notre Dame, I was hired at Mississippi State University in chemical engineering again, and started as an assistant professor. And So in academics, there's a very linear path through ranks where you're promoted from assistant to associate to full professor. So I was at Mississippi State for about 6 years, thoroughly enjoyed working with the students. And I'd actually done my undergrad at Michigan Tech, and so was recruited back after I was promoted and tenured to Michigan Tech. And of all the places I've been, Michigan Tech's a unique spot, all right? That eccentric element that most of us have, some of us are a little bit more extreme than others. It's a spot where you can try out all of those new and different things. And you're just part of the crowd because everybody is doing it. So finding a spot like that where that creativity, that discovery of new knowledge is really just enjoyed and celebrated. I think that's a goal that each of us should have in our careers. And what it's enabled is some very creative, innovative things. So for instance, in our lab, one of the discoveries we had was that using electric fields, we could discern molecular expression on cells. And this is extremely powerful because we were using it to discern ABO-RH blood type, but it goes all the way into cell signaling when it comes to cancer detection. A whole variety of things can be detected with this type of technology. So when you get a foundational knowledge such as that, you can apply it in a whole variety of ways. And the partners that you make, Lindsay made this point, just in terms of your network and the people that you meet, it's so critical because how you apply it depends on who you know, those connections, et cetera.
Wow, that's great. I resonate with both of your windowless laboratory or office comments. I did my my hands-on stuff in a windowless laboratory doing microfluidics, but it was on the 3rd floor, so I feel like I was blessed because it wasn't actually underground. So yeah, so too many memories coming back there. Thank you, Adrienne, for that. That was wonderful. Kristina, let's go to you next. Tell us about your pathway. Does it involve any windowless subterranean offices?
No, I kind of feel bad for that. So, well, you know, I've had an amazing, you know, thus far 27-year career as a nurse, and so it's my career has taken me in many different directions, and I think nurses are somewhat natural innovators, right? So I was recruited into the current role that I'm in. But my past, I've practiced, you know, mostly in the hospital setting primarily, and I've been a little bit of an ED in the emergency department. I shouldn't use acronyms here, right? So I practiced in the emergency department, and I've been an oncology nurse for 3 years. I did some surgical services. I actually worked at per diem, where I kind of floated everywhere all over the hospital at both, you know, our 2 largest campuses. And then I grew to the, you know, I went up the clinical ladder of, you know, charge nurse to supervisor to nurse manager. And for over 10 years, I actually managed I actually stood up our observation unit, actually under the emergency department in chest pain centers. And so I was a nurse manager for a long time there. And, you know, some highs and lows as I've opened a, you know, admission intake unit, but then I've also shut it down, you know, so you kind of do those things. And I ran a short stay surgical unit as well. And honestly, patients and partners and fellow clinicians have, you know, just kind of paved the way, you know, and I've learned so much in every single role that I've been in. That honestly then, you know, was allowed me to do what I'm doing today, and even gaining that business lens from in the operations part of the healthcare setting, you know, and as I was, you know, managing several units within the hospitals. And so, and then once I, you know, kind of came into this innovation role, I really had to kind of reinvent myself, right? And I had to like create the role. I actually have been one of only 2 people that have ever been in these roles of, you know, within our organization. And so, and so I had to kind of figure out, well, what am I going to do here, right? And so it's been just really beneficial, though, to have, honestly, a clinical person on the team while I work with, an engineer, and I work with some other, business folks. But what we really do well is we complement each other. And so I've also dove into a lot of design thinking, and I've actually had some training in that, realm that's also helped me work closely with innovators on, creating and really designing their product ideas that they have, and getting them to those MVP levels, or, proof of concept, where we're able to file that intellectual property and shop them out, right? And so it's just been so much fun. And honestly, every project has been very much, a learning, opportunity. And so, and I always say, if I'm learning something new every day, I've got just a great career. So yeah, and now with us kind of opening the doors where we're able to kind of like let those other innovators in and work with them as well, that's just kind of, offering a whole new opportunity for us. And so it's just fun learning a lot about investments and ventures as well, and kind of getting to weigh in and provide that clinical expertise in some of those opportunities. So yeah, I've just really relied on a lot of, learning from others, lots of little, educational opportunities along the way as well. But it's been a fabulous career, actually, and fun. I always am often saying, I'm like, I have a great, fun job. So
those are the best kind, when you can bring that passion to that. Something that you said, Kristina, and I think it resonated with what Adrienne and Lindsay both said. I heard an echo, and I think I heard the echo correctly through all of you. Getting exposures to other people that you could connect with, to other disciplines that you wanted to learn about, other roles, just getting those exposures outside of what by all rights might have been, your job or whatever else. I heard that echo, I think, in all of you. I'd like to go to Anne and see where she takes us with her path through her career.
So I've been in this career for 35 years. So I have a very short path to get there. And that I initially started my professional career as a medical technologist. And so I worked for several years in a hospital doing lab tests, and my undergrad education was great. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about medicine. I learned a lot about diseases, et cetera. As a medical technologist, I really wasn't able to utilize that information to the extent that I would have liked to, because, if there's a problem with a test, it always goes to the pathologist. And so while we would know something was wrong, I couldn't exercise all that information that I had. And so I decided to try to focus in microbiology and immunology, because immunology was just starting to take off. And I went back to school to get a master's in microbiology and immunology, and did that, was working in an immunology lab, in a clinical lab, was doing a little bit of research, but decided that I didn't really want a PhD. And I knew that my opportunities would be limited with just a master's. And so I actually thought I would go into hospital administration, applied to an evening MBA program at the University of Michigan, was admitted, spent a year in that and going, I got 3 more years before I'm going to get my MBA. It's time to just quit working as a med tech, devote myself to my education and get out. So in one class, in one of my first classes in the full-time day program, I'm talking to someone, explaining my background. And one of my colleagues, Carl, I remember who it is sitting in front of me and turns to me and says, I'm working in an office that's looking for somebody like you. And it was the intellectual properties office at the University of Michigan. And they said, we have interns there. They have interns. Maybe you might be interested. So I interviewed. I got the job. They didn't have money for me, so I was paid $4 an hour. And I decided to do that to switch my career because I knew that I would need this type of experience to go to expand my business career because I'd been clinical up to that point. And I fell in love with the job. It was tech transfer. It was a hybrid of my love of science, my interest in business, and then I started learning about the law. And I was like, this is for me. Very soon after, before I started, about a month into my second year of business school, I got offered a full-time job for when I graduated, and I started my career as a full-time as a tech transfer professional in 1988. Wow. And so I have been a tech transfer professional since actually in 87 when I started as an intern, and I've been doing this for 35 years at 4 different institutions, and now that's just how I ended up where I am. And I actually have a very interesting perspective about the transition of the career over this period of time. And I don't think there's any people out there who can say they can call Francis Collins by his first name, because when I started at Michigan, I managed the entire Howard Hughes, the inaugural class of the Howard Hughes Medical Institute inventors at the University of Michigan. And you would be amazed as to who they are, one of whom is Francis Collins. And so, I've had an ability, I really had opportunities that are probably pretty unique back then. So that's how I ended up here. Love the job. It gets,
Wow.
It can be challenging at times, but love the job. It's perfect for me.
Yeah, and how do you know which color to wear?
Oh, no, that's easy. I'm not going to go into it. So
You stay above that fray. You just stay above that fray, Ann?
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, all 3 of my degrees are from that other university. So, yeah. But and it's all okay until that one Saturday in October. But we have a bet between the 2 offices and have a great time. So, yeah.
When I need to get out of that question myself, I always just remind people that the first time I was in the stadium of the university in question was for graduation. That's how big of a sports fan I am, and that usually gets me out of it. So. And I thought it was really interesting in your description. We were talking a minute ago about how getting those different exposures is really critical in each of these stories. What I noted about your story is that you made a decision to move to get that experience, or to make a move, and then to take something that might not have otherwise been ideal because you were like, I'm going to get that experience. And in each of these stories, I'm hearing this. No one is sitting there saying, oh, well, here I am, I'm just going to stay here. There's this sense of motion. There's this sense of what is that thing that's going to expand me, expand my interests, expand my career, whatever it is. So I just thought that was very interesting how others may have, in certain instances, gotten different exposures within where they were. And in your case, there was a very clear, no, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to learn this, which I thought was really neat.
Yeah, I was really lucky, and I do mentor a lot of individuals as they come into the tech transfer profession, and I talk to them about where they want to go, et cetera, and also talk about the risk of taking those moves, and advise them to think about what those risks are, how you would recover if you take the wrong path, or you realize you were wrong in what you chose to do, but also counsel, especially some of the young, new tech transfer professionals, that you don't want to be making these decisions when you're certainly not my age, when you're getting close to the end of your career, but thinking about all your responsibilities and when you can best absorb risk.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. Well, here each of you are, you're in your roles, you're getting to see interesting things, I'm sure. One of the things that's always impressed me about the world of tech transfer is if you go back any number of years, I don't remember what year, one of you will remind me what year the Bayh-Dole Act was enacted that really gave a national impetus to the creation of various tech transfer departments. Somebody's going to tell me the year. What year was it? No, I don't remember. So anyways, I don't think there was, I think most would say that there wasn't a lot of impetus for much beyond make intellectual property available to the taxpayers. It was very much of a, okay, here we are, now what do we do? Over the years, I've watched as the creativity and the innovation has come actually to the process of tech transfer. Cool things that get done, problems that get solved. Lindsay, I'm going to put you on the spot because some years ago you were part of the Medical Innovation Center. I think you led the Medical Innovation Center for a while at U of M. And I remember one thing that I will still to this day call out to people about that effort was this sense of, hey, we're going to go send people into the hospital system and they're going to go look for interesting problems. And to me, that's always been a high water mark for that particular type of effort. And maybe we'll go to Lindsay first. The question I have is, what kinds of interesting problems are you each getting to see and getting to work on? What is near and dear to your heart in terms of the challenges you're faced with in your current role, and what kinds of fun solutions are you seeing to be able to address those? Lindsay, I'll go to you first since I called you out there. Oh, we're getting some audio problems here. Let's see if we've got Lindsay. I think we just lost Lindsay. Okay, we're gonna go back around. This time we'll start with Kristina. So to put Kristina on the spot, interesting problems that you're encountering in your role and cool solutions on the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we often get ideas submitted, I'll call them, but we often are getting problems to solve as well. So, it makes it easy, right? There's always lots of problems to solve. Sometimes you're right, we go after them, through rounding. But in a nutshell, for us, it's all about the people. I'm just going to kind of go there for a hot second. So it's about our patients, it's about our healthcare teams, and how do we do it right and support them, through innovation. And so whether it's creating a widget, I'll call it, and that's going to make surgery easier, faster, safer, you name it, that's fabulous. Or is it reducing the cost of care through technology, automation, making it available, taking care to the patients versus patients having to come to us. So I have just a plethora of amazing opportunities to work on. So and so if you want me to go into detail, I can a little bit, but there's no short order of areas of opportunity, in the healthcare arena. And so it's something that we're striving to always do better. We're always trying to make sure we're providing the best, outcomes for our patients, as well as, supporting an amazing experience. And then I'm not just talking about the patient experience. It's, the provider experience, and it starts, with, might be the first person you ever talk to on a phone, all the way, to an in-person or virtual visit, right? So to a procedure and everyone in and out of all of that entire work stream, right? They're all very important people. So we have a lot going on post-pandemic, I think is also worth, care shifted very quickly. And so, we're really moving a lot of technology forward that I think at a rate that we maybe haven't done in the past. And that's exciting, actually. And so, for us to be able to kind of, I'll use a health term, triage some of that is just fabulous. And again, it's what makes my job so much fun. So
that's really cool. I mean, I think a few years ago, there was a sense of, will there be the funding for research and translational stuff in the country? And I would agree with you, even from where we sit and what we've seen, there does seem to be a very healthy pipeline of things coming even post-COVID, when you sort of wondered, were people just going to take a back seat and sit for a while? And we're not really seeing that either. So yeah, I share your enthusiasm.
At all. In fact, if anything, we're seeing, like the doors kind of like flying open, and research is just like booming, and how are we making it even easier and faster to do it and get it done, right? So we can continue to improve upon, our innovations.
That's great. Thank you, Kristina. I think we've got Lindsay back with us. We'll go back to Lindsay there. Lindsay, I think we had just we were going to go to you, and then we got a broken signal and then dropped off. But we'd love to hear from you about what kinds of problems are you getting to see and work on?
Sure. Hopefully this stays clear now. I think the audio may have known that I was about to make a comment that I'm having to hide my U of M mug after I was listening to Ann speak when I get on Wayne State conference calls and not hold up that coffee mug. So it's, I love the medical problem solving, right? And how do you create an innovative technology solution that fits, and where there's market demand or there's reimbursement potential. And I remain very passionate about all those things. I think that more and more of what I am working on in this role is focused on, creating fuel and fire and efficiencies around innovation and commercialization for the university community. There are a lot of folks that have been part of Wayne State University for, you might say, a long time, or almost a decade or longer. Some of them are part of our team, and there are others who, were at the institution and have left, or where there's new deans being recruited, right, for certain colleges and programs on campus. So in certain ways, it is, from a leadership perspective, and with the leaders that are there at Wayne State, it's a time of rebirth. And I think that is really kind of interesting and exciting to see. And it gives me the opportunity to really kind of assess what page different people are on with relation to innovation. Because I think while those of us that are on the call today are maybe on a similar thread in our tech transfer and innovation leadership roles, there are certainly people who are on different, or in different places in their career, or in different positions in the spectrum of innovation that they represent. And so trying to find ways to create common threads and bring people together is important. One faculty member said to me from the history department at Wayne State recently, and she's a very strong female leader. She said, I felt, at one point that I was being excluded from innovation. And so I'm trying to find ways to build bridges that span different areas of innovation. While our focus is very technology centric and advanced technology specific, which Denise and I think mean the same thing when we use that phrase now because of common history that I had the opportunity to be part of with her. I think that within a university culture and within an academic environment may mean very different things to different people. And so finding creative ways to drive home the value and meaning of sharing ideas for innovation and commercialization is a pretty exciting thing for me.
Well, you do it very well. I think we're going next to Adrienne. We'd love to hear about the kind of problems you're getting to work on in your many roles. We named like 2 of your 4 roles, I think, when we started out.
Well, thank you. I've been thinking how to address this, and thought that it'd be valuable to talk about different audiences. So when I work with students in the lab, there are 2 problems that I'm really helping focus on and try to solve at that time. One is the education of the next generation of innovators that join the ranks of all these talented women, and really push the envelope. They come in with new creative solutions and ideas. As their knowledge and understanding expands, they're merging that with these ideas. And so it sort of feeds into this whole process. Then when I think of the audience of other faculty, I have the opportunity through MTrack with Denise Graves to help review proposals of innovative ideas that are coming from across the state. And that's one where you get to see those ideas, you get to provide feedback, and then help guide them along their journey towards success. And there, of course, is never enough funding to go around for all of the innovative ideas that are there. But in general, you can help pick what the most promising ones are and then assist the others to be able to get up to that stage. And then if I put on sort of the national hat, then the problem we're working to solve is helping people figure out that pathway. Because each of us have described what we learned to be able to get to that point to try. And everyone else has this diverse pathway to that point, and they don't always know where to start. And so the educational programs and assisting with figuring out your customer, figuring out who's most interested in the technology and what problem you're solving. And so I think that's the other area that I get to help with.
That's very, very cool. And so cool that you get to experience that on the laboratory level, the local level, the national level, state level, all in between. That's a wonderful set of perspectives that you bring to that. Well, thank you all for those. I often love to ask people, what makes you crazy enough to keep coming back to the well to do what you're doing, right? I think each one of us needs to ask that about our jobs. What is the passion that's driving me? And we've gotten to hear a little bit about these that you're all working on. So it's very, very cool. I want to make sure we've got time to get to what I think is a very important question. I do just want to say, as I've been watching the clock as we go through our show, somehow with the four of you, in about each 10-minute chunk that we've done thus far, you've each taken almost exactly 2.5 minutes with your answers. So I don't know if you coordinated that ahead of time, but absolutely amazing, just absolutely amazing. I don't know how you did that. But what I want to go to is this. Like we started out saying when we talked about pathway, if a young woman was listening to this today and they wanted to follow in your shoes, if at all different from any of the answers you've given at this point, what would you say? What would your specific advice be? Now you're not telling about your path, you're mentoring and you're saying, I want you to think about this. Here's what I want you to do. Here's some things I want you to pay attention to and focus on. What would you say? And Adrienne, let's start with you. I think we haven't started with you yet.
Wow, this is a challenging one. I think the first thing I would say is that your experiences are going to be very different from all the experiences that the rest of us have had for the past 20 to 30 years. Technology and innovation is moving at a pace that is much more rapid than it has been at any prior point in history. And there's also a unique coordination that's happening between the computing arena, all of the digital tools that are available and possible, with the built. And so computing, engineering, the medical care, and I would add that women in general, I've seen, have this ability to go outside of traditional boundaries and work to connect those threads across those disciplinary areas. And so as you move forward in your path, sometimes what you can do is get feedback that, no, stay within this narrow area, stay within your lanes type of thing. But the reality is that I think a lot of the innovation comes from crossing those boundaries and being able to speak the language, understand the computational thinking, the engineering thinking, the medical needs, and really the fundamental biology and physics that drive each of those areas, that's a strength. And to leverage and build those skills whenever you feel the need, I know my own career, I didn't have I want to do this, then I want to do this, then I want to do this. There's an element of following your nose and saying, I really enjoy this and I really enjoy this. And that would be the advice I'd give, is synthesize and follow your nose.
And make sure you're getting all those experiences. Don't just necessarily stay where you might feel pressure to. Love it. That's great. Anne, let's go to you next. What's your advice?
So, as a woman in academic tech transfer, I can tell you there's no barrier to being a woman in this profession. When I got into the profession, Stanford, MIT, and Harvard's offices were all led by women. So the profession is very, very friendly to women. We are all trying to increase other underrepresented participants in the profession. So the other thing that I think is really important, and this is to be a successful person in a job like I have, is you have to be yourself and develop your strategies that are organic to you. So when I first got into this profession, my boss at the time, very successful tech transfer person, totally different way this individual interacted with people, how at all, because he was who he is organically. I tell people I work with, you can learn from me, but don't try to emulate me because you're not me. Develop your style, develop your, the way you approach things so that it is organic. And then also think about getting a mentor, finding people, and pushing the envelope is really, really critical. Go where you're going to get experiences that will help either refine the way you think about your job or what you would do in the job, or, make you think, nah, this isn't really what I want to do.
Wow.
And don't worry about that pay that you get that first year, because $4 an hour was really nothing at that time, even back then.
Wow, that's amazing advice too on just being able to. Sorry, we had one of those senior moments. There is some gray hair there. I'm chalking it up to that, and that was phenomenal. Interesting point there though at the end in terms of the pay. I think what you're speaking to is when you're making that change and you're making that change and you're doing it because you want to learn. You'd probably be the first to say, if you know what your value is and you're in that industry, you know what you should be asking for, right? But what you're talking about is during that changeover.
During that change, point. Absolutely.
Yeah, no.
That experience is going to be more valuable. If look, maybe you're lucky where it's not, but that experience is going to be more valuable than the dollars per hour or whatever you're making. Yeah. If you're making that switch.
With every experience, there's the opportunity to negotiate. Yeah,
good point. And to your earlier point, which I just remembered, so the gray hair is not totally here yet, but in terms of being yourself, I think that's just phenomenal advice, because so often we look for patterns, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this show, right? You want to see, since people do latch on to patterns, give them patterns then that they can see themselves in. That's a good thing. But what you're calling us to is an even higher calling, which is know who you are, and that can defy every pattern. Know what your goal is, go for it, and love those examples you gave. Thank you, Anne. That was wonderful. Kristina, let's go to you. Your advice.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I love both of Adrienne and Anne's responses, and I 100% totally agree. But I think be curious is good advice. And if you can if you're familiar with that ladder, like being in that curious, spot on the ladder, I think that's really important. I think for me, I've always asked a lot of questions, right? And so be a sponge, and so I think if you can do that as well, that's outstanding. And I also think it's okay to take risks, and learn how to pivot, right? And do it well. Because you're gonna figure it out, because it can be done well. That's part of our business that we're in, and so, but I think that's part of innovation as well, is you're taking some risks, right? As we're learning to innovate and build and collaborate. And so I think that's really important.
Love that. Yeah, the risk taking, being willing to step out there and say, I don't know if this is going to work, but I am going to try it, and we're going to find out. Love that. Well, Lindsay, I think we come to you for the last word. Your advice to any young woman wanting to fill your shoes someday.
Sure. I would say make good friends with people like Jean, who will give you a sanity check when you need it about where your career is headed, what you're trying to do, and what you love. But in addition to make good friends, I think I really like what Anne had started to head after, kind of that let things evolve organically, be yourself. And I think know what your true north is really. There is a very important role for, I think, what we wrap ourselves around as ethics in this field. I think being honest, being deliberate, and being loyal is really important to the work and to the legal word associated with the work that we do and uphold. A lot of the negotiations I think that we get in involve, conflict of interest issues representing different companies, and trying to keep multiple parties' best interests in mind in the pursuit of innovation and the commercialization of new valuable technology. So I think always kind of keeping others' best interests as well as your own, but kind of that ethical true north in mind is a really valuable thing to do, because what are you without your word, right? That I come back to that. There were a couple of things that came up in just the deal flow this week that made me think about that more. And I know, Jean, you and I have had the opportunity to reflect on that point offline a few times. And I appreciate the career support from people who encourage others to do just that. And I think that's what I would probably recommend to a young woman.
I love it. Wow, what a great place to end. Well, we are at the top of the hour. Lindsay Klee, Anne DiSante, Adrienne Minerick, and Kristina Emery, thank you so much for being here with us today. I can't tell you how much we appreciate each of your contributions, both to today's show and also to your careers and to the fields that you work in. We're better off to have you where you are, and we're so thankful for what you're doing in each of your roles.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for the invitation to participate.
Thank you. It was a joy to learn from everyone here.
I agree. Thank you. This was an honor.
And as always, to our fearless leader, Denise Graves, for putting this series together in partnership with MedTech Crossroads and representing MEDC. Denise, we're always so thankful for this, and we're looking forward to the next one coming up. I believe it is the 29th of July. We're going to be talking to mentors, women mentors, leading startups and others in these sorts of efforts. So Denise, thank you as always for your support.
Thank you for your partnership, Jean, and thank you, Anne, Lindsay, Adrienne, and Kristina. Appreciate it.
Well, with that, we're at the top of the hour, just a little bit past. We thank you for being here. Next week, we pick up with de-risking medical device development. We'll be talking about design controls as a vehicle for keeping all those things in order. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same channel. Thanks again for being with us. Bye-bye.